Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. We're starting with the basics. Today we're going to go ahead and actually replace our overhead light right here. So that's our old fixture. We wanted to get that one out. Turn around and put an LED light fixture in. So let's show you how we get that taken care of. Today I'm going to be having with me a lot of the same tools that you've already seen, except for one addition, which is over on the far side of the shot here. That's my floodlight. And outside of that, everything else you've already seen, and of course I got my safety goggles on. I got a pair of cutters. I have my pliers right here, my knife. In case I need them, I have a Phillips and a flathead, and my electrical tester. Alright, so I've already turned the electricity off using that breaker that I've shown you over there in that light switch video. But for the overhead light and for any other electric work, I want to make sure that I actually am safe. So I have my light switch turned on. I don't have any electricity, so let's pull this down a little bit more. Oh, fun. Okay. Yeah. I guess. Alright, so again, I already checked it, but I'll show you. I have no electricity coming through there. On the old style, which is right up in here, I have these two right there. Now, two of those are for the black wires, two of them are for the white wires. I do not have a grounding wire, which I do actually need. Oh, wait. Ah, I got a piece of a grounding wire right here. I don't know if you can see it in that shot. Let's see if I can bring it out here. There you go. So this is my grounding wire. Do I have any slack? Well, I don't have any slack. So let me go grab a wire nut and another small piece of wire. I'll be right back. Alright, so I went out and I grabbed some of that wire. I got some of that right here. This is the conduit that I actually have installed in my wall. It's a 12 tack 2. Show you that right here. 12 tack 2. This is all the basic wire that you're going to have running most of the way through your house. Unless you have something like a baseboard heater or something like your stove running to, well, if you got an electric water heater, a water heater, your dryer, a lot of that's going to be 10 gauge wire where most of your other appliances are 12. Alright, so this one still has a grounding wire inside of it, but you can't really see that too well. So I'm going to take my blade, open it up. So I don't need all of it, I just need a piece. One reason I keep a little spare pieces of this around is because when I get ready to go and do other projects, I might want something like that. Alright. So let's drop this off to the side. I know that I'm going to want this attached to that. I'm also going to want that cleaned up a little bit. So copper likes to corrode. And the corrosion, which you've probably noticed because Statue of Liberty is also made of copper, loves to turn a green color. Now the more corrosion it has, the less likely it will be to conduct electricity on the surface, unless those two points were joined together initially. So what I'm doing here is a crude way of exposing some of that base copper again. Okay, so right here, I have a bag of wire nuts, or wire connectors as they call them. It'll give you a description on the bag of how many or what type of nut you need depending on how many wires you have. So the minimum gauge for this one is an 18 gauge and the maximum gauge for a yellow one here is 12. It can hold 3 12 gauge wires, so it's 3 tack the number sign 12. Over here, minimum is 2 tack the number sign 18. So if I go up to the red one, it will say 5 tack the number sign 12. So if I use a yellow one, it can hold 3 12 gauge wires. If I use a white one, it can hold up to 3 10 gauge wires, which will still work for my 12 gauge. And if I use a red one, it will hold up to 5 12 gauge wires. Well, I don't need that many, so let's grab out a yellow one here. There we go. And again, we close this one up, drop it off to the side. Okay, so here's my yellow wire nut. Here's my piece of spare copper wire. I'm gonna bend that over just with my fingers. Get it kind of at the same angle here. Stick both of them in, drop this one in on top of it. I might need to cut this other thing back. Looks like I do. All right. If you're cutting towards yourself, just like with that knife that slipped, you gotta be careful, because you don't want to cut your finger wide open. Trick that I've learned is I put my thumb right up against my knife as I'm cutting, so if it does pop loose, it's not gonna fall towards my hand. If it pops loose, it's gonna fall away from me. It's a neat little trick. All right, so we got that cut a little bit more. Got that pulled back, get that separated out here. That's not coming off, that's not coming out. So now I have a grounding wire. If you've never done this before and you want to make sure that your grounding wire is actually connected correctly, what I would do is take something called a multimeter, digital multimeter or anything like that. You can buy them at Home Depot. Some of them are as cheap as $10. And what you would do is hold one to one side, which is over here, that you can still barely see, and set it to a resistance setting. It looks like a little line, half moon, half circle shape, 3/4 circle, with another line coming out the other side. That's your resistance setting. And you would put one lead on one side and one lead on the other piece here. And then you should be able to read basically pretty much 0. You'll probably read like 0.1 or 0.2. That's fine. Anything greater than 0.5 to 1.0 is something you want to actually avoid. So if you see something about 0.5 or less when you're dealing with something like this, you know you have a good connection if you're actually that worried about it. Okay, so now I need to know for my light which one is actually hot. Most of my wires that I've had come out only have one set of wires like this and this, which means the power from my light is actually connected and going to something else when it's turned on, which is a little bit weird. Again, I ran into that with the wall switch. I ran into some weird stuff with the wall plug. We're putting up a new ceiling light and I run into something else that's weird. So nothing in my house. I've owned the house here for about 2 years. I haven't had any issues with electrical fire. I haven't had any weird smells coming up. I haven't found anything interesting inside of the walls when I've opened it, wiring wise, that would tell me that it's something else I need to worry about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reconnect this the same way that I actually took it apart. Because it was already working in the first place, I don't know what else it's connected to. I want to keep everything working. Okay, so let's go ahead and open our light. Okay, so in most of my other lights that I've removed from the ceiling, it already has a center spindle that's coming down. I've been able to reuse that center spindle for this. If you don't have that, thankfully this one has come with some attachments and some screws. So I'm going to dump these off to the side here. And then we'll hold them up so you can see. All right, so this is the main spindle I'm talking about that comes out of the center. It's got a nut right here on the back side that actually sets the depth for the screw that comes out from the ceiling. We have this plate that I was thankful to actually have. And right here, let's hold it up on this side so you can see it, right there. That's where my grounding wire is going to attach. It's kind of important. I have my 2 screws that are going to go through that plate right here. 1, 2. They're both Phillips. And I also have some wire nuts or wire connectors. Now I can use these, or I can use the ones that I have. So this one looks like it's only going to be good for 2, maybe 3 wires, but I don't know if it's going to fit. So I'm going to grab that bag of wire nuts. So I'm going to hold this back up so you can see what I'm talking about with the numbers. I don't know if I showed that to you. There you go. So I'm going to use, this time around, I'm going to use these tan ones here. I got red, you got tan, and I got yellow. You can see that right here. You might be able to see that one. That's the yellow one there. All right, put those back down to the side. So the first thing you need to actually connect is going to be your brace. It's very important. Wherever your brace goes depends on where everything else needs to fall. Just like that. Now, I have 2 sets of wires here. This side and this side. You can set them up on either side if you want, but when you get ready to recess everything back up to the ceiling, it's going to be difficult because it's on a different side. I have more wire length here than what I have here. So these are longer than these ones, right? So I want to put everything here onto this other side because I can bend this one up, and this is where my ground post is. So I'm going to set these off to the side like this. I'm going to be able to put this up here like that and screw it to the ceiling. Let's get that done. Okay, so this bracket, I want it to be centered over the hole, and it's adjustable. So I'm going to push this or move it until it's centered, or about centered. So we have this nut that's on the bottom here, and we have a nut that's on the top. So we take the bottom nut off, and I'm going to take the top nut off. Now, I could have went ahead and installed this piece first into that bracket before I put it up there, which would be a smart idea. However, if you forget to do it, I did it this way so to show you that you can still do it with it already installed. Again, you know there's no power to your wires, so you're not worried about getting your fingers up in there because you already checked that. Put your finger up in there. Line the nut up over top of the hole. You can even start to thread this through. Get it on top. Should be able to hold it with your finger and get it lined up. It's going to take a second. Okay. So that nut on top helps to gauge the distance. You don't know what the distance is going to be yet, which is fine. I'm going to take this over here. Bring my light up. It actually comes apart. There we go. And I also have my wires. So this is the way that my wires came. You can see these white wires and this black wire is all kinds of tangled. Let me show you how to straighten that out here. You can just use your fingers. Be careful because copper will be sharp. Kind of poke yourself. Gently work it back together. I'm going to do that same thing for the other two here. Alright, so now that I have them straightened out, now I'm going to turn them the same direction that this grounding wire is turned. You can see there's a little bit of an angle to it. So I usually take it and twist it away from me. That right there is pretty much how you want them to look before you put on all the wire nuts. Okay, so now we're going to take our wire nut, put it up, get these two lined up so that they're kind of started. There we go. Slide this bad boy in here like this. You can also take them and twist them around like that a little bit if you want. Just like that. Give this a couple of good twists. Thing doesn't want to stay on there, does it? Okay. So then I'll just take this and I'll wrap it around. Get it started, more or less. I'm trying to keep my hands out of the shot here. There we go. Okay. Small tug. Didn't come loose. Gently let that hang. Now we're going to trim these so I can lay them back up on top up in here. Again, I cut them to about the same length. Okay, if you're using a flathead to actually push your wires up, you have to be extremely careful, because if you're not, you can actually damage the wire itself and the insulation and break through it. If you break through the insulation, you have to stop, undo everything and start over again, or slide what's known as heat shrink over the top of it. Alright, so now this piece right here is what's going to fit through the center hole. Just like that. Next, we take that silver nut, put that silver nut on. Tighten that in. That's not going anywhere. We're going to go ahead and grab that lens, throw this lens back up here. Then I'm going to go in the other room and actually flip that breaker back on. Alright, breaker's back on. So now, since I put in some wire nuts and that kind of stuff, I'm listening real quick to see if I can hear anything. Popping, crackling noises, sizzling sounds, arcs, sparks, that kind of thing. And I'm also using my nose to smell and see if I have anything. Now I know I put it together correctly because I've taken my time, I've done it enough times. But as another safety check, that's something you can do. Now I haven't turned my light switch on yet, but that's fine because I've connected those other wires. Remember those other two that I told you, the two blacks and the two whites, connected those together. So if there was something wrong there, I should be able to hear it, I should be able to smell it because those are now connected, even though my light's turned off. Don't hear anything. All right, let's flip the switch. There you go. Well, that's how easy it is to replace a light on the overhead. Again, stop, slow down, take your time, do your little research. You can do things like this too. Again, thanks for tuning in for this week's episode of Ray Starting with the Basics, where we replace the overhead light. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe button down below. If you want, leave a comment, let me know how I'm doing, some other videos and such. We do have those mechanical videos coming up, like I was telling you about. Just haven't quite got there yet because I had a few things like this that were easy on the inside. See you next time.